Hello, everyone, and welcome to class. So this is reading. Okay, so this is reading for IELTS, and this is the third class already. So today we're going to do like the last part of the test, which is like reading 3, and then I think it will be like similar to like the previous tasks, but like the style and like the questions will be a little bit different. But what is, I mean, I would say like what is different between, different reading is that uh if you are doing reading 1, so it's gonna be like general topic, like I mean the text, the content of the text of the reading text. It will be like the general like topic. So you could expect like something that you could find in your real life. And then the language is like general English as well. So it is like the easiest. But when we move on to reading 2, so the style of the text would be a little bit more academic. So like there will probably talks about kind of like the research and things, and uh, like the language is a little bit more difficult in reading 2. So for reading 3 today, so it's gonna be like academic text with academic language. So it will be the text itself will be more difficult than the previous tasks, or like reading 1 and reading 2. Okay, so the materials that we're going to use today is this one. So reading section 3. Okay. So before I like move on to like teach you guys, so I want you to like do it on your own first. So just to see like how you're doing with the test. So if you have the materials ready, so the reading text itself start from here. So why don't babies talk like adults? So this is the start of the text. So it's from a recent E-Trade advertisement here. Okay, so it's go all the way. So here on the right as well. So here and ends on next page here. So or know why it ends. Okay, so this is the whole text that you're going to read, and I would say it's about like 2 pages long. So like I mean I would say like A4 size, and so it's quite long and it's quite wordy. Okay, and then it's like academic. Okay, so this is the reading text, and I would say the task itself, the task itself that you have to do, there would be 3 sections here. So you would start from this one. So question 1 to 4. So it's yes, no, not given, which is the same thing as true, false, not given, I would say. So it's here. So number 1 to number 4. So there's 4, but like the first set would be 4 questions. Okay. And the second task that you have to do is this one. So from number 5 to number 9. So this one is kind of fill in the blanks, and but it's a little bit different from the previous fill in the blanks tasks that we did. As this one, you will see that they have choices for you. So basically you have to choose the choices and then fill in the blanks with these vocabulary. Okay, so this is the second task. And the third one is from number 10 to number 14. So, and this one is multiple choice questions, which I assume that you should be familiar with the task, the questions. So 14 questions, okay, so in total. So what I want you to do now, what you're supposed to be doing now is like you pause the video, right here, and complete these readings. So these 14 questions based on this reading, okay, based on this reading. So you should spend about like 20 minutes on this. So please time yourself. Okay, so time yourself when you do it. And when you finish, you can continue the video. So you can start now. And don't forget to pause the video. Okay, so I hope as you continue this video, so you complete the task. So 14 questions from reading 3, and it should be about like 20 minutes. Okay, so before I start with the reading text, I want to kind of go over reading sub skills before, because sometimes I would use some technical terms so you would understand. So there are many reading sub skills, but the one that I think it's relevant to the test would be skimming and scanning. Okay, so which is here on the screen. So I hope you remember. I mean, if you were with me before, I would say this all the time. So if you skim the text, so what you want is you want the overall idea or main idea. Okay, so you want to kind of see how the story flow and what it talks about and so on. But if it's scanning, so you are reading for specific information. So it means that you kind of have something in mind, like the target, and then you would read it so that you get the answer. Okay, so these two are kind of different. So my suggestion is that like you should use different reading sub skills when you tackle the task so that you would finish it quicker. Okay, so these two I would use them, in doing an IELTS test. So first of all, when you do the skimming, so it means that you should read from the beginning of the text to the end, okay, and then you would get the main idea of the text. But in terms of the test, so it could be more useful than just, getting the main ideas and see how the story flows. Okay, so what I want you to do now is that I want you to skim the text. Okay, I want you to skim the text. So just read through it quickly from the beginning to the end again. I know that you've completed the task, but I want you to do it again. Okay, so read the overall, read the overall, I would say like the overall text. Okay, so from the beginning to the end. And also, what I want you to do is read the task, read the questions. Okay, so skim the text from here, from the beginning to the end. Okay, and skim the questions as well. So you will see that there would be, 3 sections that I mentioned earlier. So number 1 to number 4, number 5 to number 9, and also number 10 to number 14. So the reason why I asked you to skim like these two is that usually IELTS would design the test as their as a section. So as you skim the text this time, I want you to design to choose the section of the reading text. So choose the paragraph that belongs to each section of the questions. So for example, like question 1 to question 4. So like which paragraph, for example, it could be like the first, the second, the third paragraph. And from number 5 to number 9, maybe it would be from paragraph 4 to paragraph 7, for example, like that. So I want you to, grouping the paragraph so that when you tackle the task, like try to find the answer, you don't have to read, all over again, from front to back, all the time. Okay. So this time you should spend about less than 5 minutes. Okay. Less than 5 minutes to skim the text, skim the question, and, group the paragraph so that we know, which section that we're going to talk about. And then I'm gonna, go through these text sections by sections. Okay, so please pause the video now and start skimming. So you should time yourself for 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. And as you continue the video, so I assume that you done skimming the text already. Okay, so what I ask you to do is, to group the text. Okay, so group the text so that we'll just read section by section. So we don't have to read, the whole 2 pages when we complete the task. And for the first section, question 1 to question 4, so I would say that it should be the first 3 paragraphs. So this is the first one. Recent e-trade advertisements. The second one is many people assume children learn to talk by copying. And the third the third paragraph is, however, this copycat theory. So the first 4 questions should be in the first 3 paragraphs. Okay. And the way that I get it is that I read the question and can kind of see that they ask, something around these one word sentences like here, and they would talk about scientists, they talk about, children have conversations, so like right here. So there's lots of keywords here. So the first 3 paragraphs would be, for the first section, number 1 to number 4. And then section 2, like question 5 to question 9. So if you look at the questions itself here, so if you skim the text, I mean the questions, they would talk about like 2 main theories. So they would talk about the first theories and then the second theories. So if you go back to the reading text, so actually these actually like the reason that I kind of like cut it right here is that I can kind of see that, so this talk about the first theory, basically like this part here, like the first of these. So they were the first of these is called mental developmental hypothesis. So this is the first, we say theories. And then the second right here, so the second, so it belongs to the second theory. So we kind of know that like, okay, these 2 would be, for question 5 to question 9. Okay, and the last section would be, I would say from here. So I actually gonna cut it here for the second question. Okay, second questions, not question, second section 5 to 9. The reason is because that from question 10 to 14, like the last section of the test, it's talk about, they actually like the question number 10, they say that in the 7th paragraph, so this is the 7th paragraph. So I would say like very, very be aware of it, because like sometimes you just miscount the number or like, the paragraph, and then you could end up like kind of like confusing. So 7th paragraph is this one. So right here. So I would say from question 10 to 14 would be from this paragraph onwards to the end of the text. Okay, so in this case, you could kind of see that, like, we put it into different groups, and then when you work on question 1 to question 4, so you only work with the 3 paragraphs, so it's like shorter. And 5 to 9, you work with the 3 paragraph again, okay, 4, 5, and 6. And then the last section, you work from like paragraph 7. So you don't have to go over back and forward for the whole reading text. Okay, so I think it's worth doing it in the test. And another thing to bear in mind is that when we complete the task, like this in IELTS, usually I would say like 90% of the time, the question will be in order in different sections. So for example, if the question 10 would ask about information in this paragraph, so I expect that like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 in order in this section. So it's kind of like it would help us to kind of follow the order. And so it sometimes it's kind of like switch around a little bit, but like it definitely like most of it would be in order, so it would help. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the first 4 questions. So what we're gonna work on would be in paragraph 1, 2, and 3. So right here, so when we scope down, the text already, so we would do the second ratings of skills, which is scanning. Okay, so we're gonna do the scanning part. And this one, rating for specific information. So what I mean by this is that, like, right now we want to answer the question. So in the questions, so there's gonna be like some kind of keywords, and then we want to find the information in the text in order to answer the questions. So if we go back to the question, so the first task number 1 to number 4 is yes, no, not given. So it is the same thing as true, false, not given. So they will give you like 4 questions here. So not question, like 4 statements actually. And then you have to decide whether it's like yes or true, no or false, and not given would be the same as true, false, given. So what we have to do here is that you have to find the information in the text, okay? And then you would decide if it's true, it's made like the true information means exactly the same thing. If it's no, if it's no, so or false, so there's gonna be something wrong with it, like some information is wrong. Okay, so it's gonna be like, for example, if they say like, so this is ugly and this is beautiful, so like this is no, because it's, you know, kind of like the opposite. But if it's not given, you still can find it in the text, but you cannot really say whether it's true or false, basically. Okay, so the point is that you have to be able to find it. Okay, so you cannot really say that, oh, I cannot find it, so it's not given. So this is very, very risky in order to kind of like get it wrong, because they will try to trick you. So basically, you would find it somewhere, but you just cannot really say whether it's true or false. So that would be not given. Okay, so the first one, so you will say that they kind of underline the word for you, so they kind of help you a little bit with this. So the first statement, people are extremely amused when they see baby talk like an adult. Okay, so it's mean like it's funny. So it's funny when baby talk like an adult. So let's look at the text. So I would say they said it right here. So this statement, few things are as funny as baby who talk like an adult. So this is the key. So few things are as funny as baby who talks like an adult. So there would be a part where they talk about, you know, they would talk about the baby talk like an adult here. So baby who talk like an adult. So that would be like the second underline. And then the first one, people are extremely amused. So it was funny. Right. So here, this one. So few things. So not so many things that would be as fun as the baby. So it means like the baby talk like an adult is very funny. So like it was so funny that like, you know, not many things would be as funny as it. Okay. So the first one here, so the first question would be true, because they would say like, you know, like, so like, you know, nothing would be as fun as, you know, as funny as the baby. So it means that the baby is really funny. Okay, so the first one is true based on this sentence here. Okay, number two, they said it. Behavioralists of the early 20th century argue that children learn to speak by copying an adult. So there will be like keywords. Behavioralist, IST would be you know, people, but it's matched to here. So behavioralism. And then the 20th century, so it's like right here. Okay. So these states, so actually it would be like based on these statements, because they would like contain keywords. And then they say that behavioralism, which is an approach, okay, so made exactly this argument. So it means that they kind of like agree with the statement, but like which statements, right? So right here, so this argument linked to the sentence, you know, before it. So it means that they like, you know, behavioralism agree with these statements. So this is what it says here. So in the questions, you know, in the task, they say that children learn to speak by copying an adult. Okay, so let's see what it says. So many people assume that children learn to talk by copy what they hear. Okay, so copy what they hear. So they would hear it from an adult, and then the behavioralism agree with this statement. So number two, the answer is yes. Is still true, because, you know, this idea, you know, behavioralists agree with this statement. So this is true. Okay, so question one and question two, the answer is yes. Okay, so there's two. So from these statements. Okay, so let's move on to statement three. So statement three. So statement three. So it will be in this paragraph. So as I mentioned that it will be in order. So you will see that we match the second question, like, you know, in the last paragraph, I mean last sentence in the second paragraph. So question 3 and 4 would be in this paragraph, like, the third one. So statement 3 said that children have more conversations with adults than with other children. Okay, so we have to scan the text, and what we find is right here. There's a keyword that it says that here toddlers aren't as conversational as an adult. Right here. So toddler means like, kids that kind of like, they would just start walking, I would say like maybe at the age of 2. So these statements say like, children aren't as conversational. So it's conversation means like, when we talk, right? So, but when it's conversational ended with AL, it become an adjective. So it means that these words they use conversational to describe people characteristic. So for example, if I am conversational, so it means that like, I kind of like, have conversation a lot. I like to talk to people. But if I'm not conversational, so, I don't like to talk to people. I like to kind of like sit by myself and quiet. So I don't have lots of conversation. So in these segments, it's actually say that, kids are not like as talkative as an adult. So they don't talk as much as adults do. Okay, so this is what these means. But in the statement, so have more conversation with adult. So in the questions, in the statement, so it says that more conversation with adults than with, other children. So it means that like children likes to talk to an adult. They talk to an adult more than, the kids at the same age like that. So you will see that these two statements talks about different things, even though they talks about, the conversation, but in the text here, it actually talks about, they compare between, toddlers and adults, who talk more. But in the statement, so they actually compare the conversation that they have with adults and have with children. So they would, they talk about different things. And actually from these, we don't really know who, the toddlers talks to. So we don't know, like here, they don't really say that they talk to an adult or they talk to their friends like that. So for number 3, it would be not given. Okay, so it's not given. Because we cannot really decide, we don't really know, who they talk to. And the last one, number 4, scientists found that found it easy to work out why baby use one-word sentence. Okay, so I would say we could match it to this one. What is hard for them is to explain these first words and how they fit into language acquisition pattern. Okay, so in the statement, so it says like scientists found it easy, so it's easy for them. But here, so it says like what is hard for them is that like it is difficult. So they like if it's difficult, it says the opposite. So the last one, number 4, would be no. So because in the statement, so it said easy, and then in the text it said difficult, hard. So it's the opposite. So this one is no. Okay, so the answer, so we'll show you the answer once again. So for the first 4 questions, so I would say the first one is yes. Why for yes? Okay, and number 3 would be not given. And number 4 would be no. Okay, so this is the answer for the first 4 statements. So this is the first section. So you will see that like we'll only work on the first 3 paragraphs. And then even if you cannot really find it, so you would just go back and forward between these sections. Okay, so I hope you have an idea that like how we scan the text. So when you complete the task, what you should be doing is that you should match the text to the question. So it's gonna be matched. You have to match it before you decide the answer. And then let's move on to the second section. So move on to the second section. So this one, I would say actually it's kind of, a few in the blanks, because, they would have, statements and the blanks. But what is different from, rating 1 or rating 2 is that for this one, they have a choices for you. So it's not that you find the answer in the text and then you fill it. You have to match it to the choice that they have as well. Okay, so if you skim the text, so if you look at the text, so you will see that there are like 2 paragraphs, and these would help you a little bit, okay, when you like try to get the answer, when you try to match the answer or scan the answer in the reading text. So if you skim the text, okay, so like maybe like 1 minute, to skim these the questions here from number 5 to number 9. So pause the video and skim this one to see like how it works. And we know that we have paragraph 4, 5, and 6 already, right? But I want you to categorize it, group it into like smaller chunk. So see like, where should the answer number 5 and number 6 would be, and then which paragraph that question 7 to number 9 would be. So you should spend like 1 or 2 minutes on this. So please pause the video before we move on. Okay, as you continue the video, I hope that you finish skimming and then like grouping the text. Okay, so if you skim these parts, you would see that there will be 2, as I mentioned, there will be 2 paragraphs. So the first paragraph talks about the first theory, and then the second task talks about the second one. Okay, so if you go back to the text, so you will see that the first, this paragraph, I would say paragraph 4, talks about the first theory, and then the second theory will be from this one on, like I would say like from this, like I would say from this paragraph, because these one, the difference between these theories, they talk about the difference. So so question 5 and 6 belongs to this one, okay, and then 7 to 9 would be, in the second, the second is called this one paragraph. So as you read, so you will see that you would just try to understand, this one paragraph in order to answer, so it would be easier for you to understand. So for the number 5 and number 6, so actually number 5, they give you the answer already, which the answer is time. Okay, so I would say that the answer, would be from here. So it says that, like I would say number 5, their immature brains can't handle adult speech. Okay, or another place that you could kind of like match number 5 is this one, before their brains are ready. So this one, mental developmental hypothesis. So it means like, they would talk because their immature brains cannot handle the speech. So cannot handle adult speech. So it means that like, their brains are kind of like baby brains, so they cannot really do what adults, do. So basically, they have to wait until their brains are ready. So their brains are ready, so they need time, right? So children would just, as they grow up, so the brain would be, more mature. So they need time. Okay, so that's why the answer would be choice C. But for question 6 here, I would say I want to point out these keywords such as. Okay, so when we say the word such as, which means for example, so it's an example of the, of the situation, like other situation, and you will see that in these theories they would talk, or they already talk about the like how children learn the words. So in this part here, in the same way that it does to master other abilities. So the keyword would be like, other abilities. So it means that it should be something that is not the language. And then they would give an example, right? So if you go back to the reading text here. So right now, what you want to scan is that you want to scan for the example that is not language ability. So if you skim the text here, so children don't learn to walk until their bodies are ready here. So you will see that this is not the language acquisition. So it's not the way that children learn language. It's other ability. It's like, their bodies. So for this one, they gave an example of, they would learn to, they don't learn to walk until their bodies are ready. So I mean, if they learn to walk, they cannot really walk because their bodies are not ready. So this is an example. So if you look at the choice here, so the answer would be physical movement because they would talk about like, walking. So it's physical. Physical means something relating to our body. So the answer for number 6 is B, physical movement. And then let's move on to 7, 8, and 9. So I want to point out some keyword before we go, before we see the text. So the second theory said that children, something. So like something is the key factor. We want to see like what is the key factor of, language acquisition. Okay. And then, so what they mean by key factor is that, some key steps have to occur. So that's going to be something, that happened before, at the second stage, basically, before the second stage. So, so we have to see, that like, which one, like what does it, like what is the second stage that it occur. And number nine develops in the same way. So they will talk about like something that developed in the same way. So it's gonna be some kind of example because it's not gonna be a language because develop in the same way. So like it's the same. So it's when they talk about other things and it's the same as language acquisition. Okay, so this one they talk about second theory. So if we go back to the reading text, so we should focus on these paragraphs because it talks about the second theory. Okay, so we want to find, key factors. We want to find the second steps, and we want to find an example. So these are like the 3 things that we kind of like wanna find, right? So so for these, the second theories. Okay, so they say that like there are stages here. Okay, and then you will see that there would be like example, basketball player can't perfect his or her jump. Okay, so they would talk about like the first example would be, basketball player jump and shoot. And similarly, so children learn to multiply after they've learned how to add here. So I would say like these 3, lines are example, which would be for question 9, right? So if you look at these 2, so the first one, basketball player, so they would talk about physical movement again, right? But in this case, we already answer physical movement for question 6, so we use it already. So you cannot use it for the second time because they didn't say it in the question that you can use the letter twice. So it means that you can only use once. So, and then physical movement is already answer of question 6. So it means that we have to focus on the second example, which is like children learn to multiply after they learn how to add. And then this is mathematics. So multiply means, for example, 2 multiplying 3 would be 6, equal to 6. So this is multiply or like คูณ เลข. And they have learned to add. Add is like plus, คือบวกนะ And so for number 9, it's mathematical knowledge. So number 9, the answer is E, elephant. E, elephant. Okay, so this is an example. But now we still want to find the key factors and the second stage, right? So And then if we continue, so they would say like, children would do it in order, right? So here, they say that there's evidence that children don't usually begin speaking two-word sentences until they learn certain number of single words. So it means that they have to know like single word first before they use like two-word sentences. So they have to know individual word before they use like, like combine many words together. Right. So if you look at the answer for this one, so the key factor would be vocabulary level, because they would talk about like single words. So if they know lots of words, so they can kind of like, add it together. So the answer for number 7 is A. So vocabulary level. Okay. And then so because it says that there would be like key steps before, the second stage, which the second stage would be, when they use two words, right? So it's F, sentence formation. So they add, two words together. Formation is mean kind of like to build something, like they form. For example, like when we say like, okay, like you get into the team, you form a team, so you kind of build the team. So they build a sentence. So it means like sentence mean more than one word, right? So this one, so it means that they have to know like vocabulary, lots of single words before they add them together. And the example would be E, as we mentioned earlier, it's mathematical knowledge. And number 6, the answer is B. So these are the answer for question 5 to question 9. Okay, so I leave you a few minutes to check. And before I move on to talk about, question 10 to 14. So if you haven't kind of matched the questions to the reading text, just like what we did earlier, so I want you to try. Okay, so for question 10 to 14, so if you just kind of like skim it and answer it, so I want you to go back to it again. So go back to the text and question, and I want you to match, like, okay, so these questions and these answers, so you match to the statements before continue the video. Okay, so pause the video for now. We go back to question 10 and 14 again, and see if, you can find the information from the reading text before you continue. Okay, welcome back, and let's move on to section 3, which is like question 10 to 14. And as I mentioned earlier, that you should be able to find, the information from the reading text and match to the question. And for this section, it's kind of goes in order. So which means that, here, so it says that in question 10, so the main purpose of question 7, so paragraph 7. So it means that you have to kind of understand these, this paragraph. And when they ask about main purpose, so it's more of like skimming, but this one, it's like, it's skimming in the like, paragraph level. So you try to only understand this one. So for this paragraph, they talk about the researchers, and then they kind of like, do the research. And they would talk about, children who adopted, okay? And then they talks about, these children. And then like there are lots of things that like, lots of characteristic of these children, or characteristic. So many of them no longer hear their birth language. So they like, they kind of like arrive here, and then they would use English as like an adult. Not adult, like baby, like a baby. So they would like, they know nothing about English, and then they arrive, and then they don't speak their first language, and then they start learning English. And then these one, they don't go to classes, they don't use dictionaries. So this is the character of, you know, the adopted children that the researchers kind of like studies. Okay, and then I would say the main idea would be in this three lines. All of these factors make them an ideal population to test, you know. So here, populations mean, you know, the like something that researchers want to study, which is the children in this case. So, you know, the factors that I talked about earlier made them an ideal population. So this is a character of, you know, children that they wanna study in terms of how, you know, they learn languages. So the answer for question 10 is choice D. Okay, so hold on a second. Not D, I would say A. So sorry. So it's A. Okay, so it's A. So because they talk about children, right? So they give the reason why children were used in the study, so that like they don't use their birth language, they don't use dictionaries, they don't take classes. So it's feel like they were kind of like, you know, babies. So the answer is A because they talks about you know, the population. So they talk about children. Okay, so but for I would say for choice B, C, and D, if you have a look at it, it's like they would talk about like, you know, adopted children, they would talk about, you know, learning languages. So which is at the same topic, but it's not specific. So this one they talk about why, you know, the reason why that they are good. So you know, those factors make them an ideal population. So that's the answer for question 10. So for question 11, so they would talk about, you know, these three researchers. So these are like the hint to help us find, you know, the answer. So you will see that they mention their names kind of here. See this one. So this is the, I would say this is the keywords. So we talk about these researchers. And then the question said that like these three people based their study on children who. So it's mean like we wanna talk about children that they kind of study, right? So I would say it's like here. So these children began learning English at an older age than natives, than US natives. So it's matched to choice C. It's matched to choice C. Okay. Oh, actually, oh. So it's choice C because it says here that, you know, the children that they study learn English at a later age than the US, which matches to the reading text where it says that, you know, children learning English at an older age, So, so, so it's later age. So this is kind of like the synonyms here. So the answer for number 11 is C. So for question 12, so question 12, so they ask what aspect, okay, that they differ from. So we focus on the different. Okay, so this one, bear in mind that we focus on the different. Okay, and if you have a look at the paragraph, so actually they would talk a lot about, you know, the similarities. Okay, so so if you look at the text, okay, so if you look at the text, they would talk about like, you know, a lot of similarities. So as for example, the adoptees went through the same stages here, see, and then they like here. So just as with American-born infants, their first English sentence consists of single words. So it's like this, the word just as means like the same. Okay, so it's the same. So it's same as, American-born infant. So it's like the native speaker. So they would use English, right? So the keyword that make it differ. Okay, so the questions focus on like different. So it's here, this one, Albert at a faster clip. So these words are, but it's academic words. So it's this one is difficult word. So it means like but. Okay, so it means but. So it suggests the opposite. So here they said that the adoptees went through the same stages. So when they talked about American born, so they were kind of like same stage, but at faster clip. So they would talk about like it was faster. It was the same, but it was just faster. Okay, so this is the keyword. And if we look at the question here, so the one that means faster is the rate at which they acquire the language. So they will do like the same thing, like same stages, but faster. So the rate is faster. So the answer for choice for question 12 is C. So the rate is faster. So this is the answer. So we'll see that, when we answer it, I would be able to kind of like match, the answer to the reading text. Always, it is always. And move on to question 13 here. So they will talk about Howard finding. Okay, so finding means result. In academic English, finding means result. It's not mean like searching anymore. It means result. So basically, number 13, they ask, what is the result of the Harvard study? And so this is a keyword. So they would talk about the finding here. So you will see right here. So the finding. Okay, so these are like all the findings. So you have to kind of understand what happened. And the answer, like the keywords, the answer is here. Learning how to chat like an adult is a gradual process. So it's a process, and then it's like step by step. So it's right here. So, and I would say like the whole paragraph here talks about like the steps that they learn. Okay, so for example, here, one word first, 2 words later. So it's like process, it's a step. So this one concluded all that, like learning to chat like an adult, learning how to talk is like gradual process. They have to do it step by step. Okay, so this is kind of like the keyword to the answer. And the answer is here. Language learning take place in ordered steps. So they have to follow like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's B. And the last one. When the writer says critical period, he means the period when. So actually they want to ask about the definition of the critical period. And this is the like kind of is a name. So they have the quotation mark. So this is a keyword. So we want to find, where it talks about, critical periods. So and we could find the keyword here, critical period. So it's the name. So the definition of it is that after which it cannot proceed with full success to fluency. So this is the answer. So after which, so here actually, which this word is a relative clause, and then it's mean critical period. So after the critical period, language acquisition cannot proceed with full success to fluency. Okay, so this is the keyword. And if you look at the choices, okay, so critical periods mean the period when language learning takes place effectively. Right here. Because after the critical period, okay, so after the critical period, so like basically they said that you cannot really, learn languages because like it's only like, the certain period. So I would say, I mean, as you may know that like when you want to learn kind of English, you have to like learn it when you're very young, or like other languages, like some people would send their kids to, to study abroad and so on. So there would be like a period. And then like they don't really know exact time, but they actually say like there would be like a certain point where like if you learn the language before this point, you would be fluent. Okay, so if you get to learn like language during, certain periods, which they don't really know, like, when exactly, if you learn the language during that period, so you would be fluent in that language. Okay, so this is what critical periods mean. Okay, so you will see that these reading, it's kind of like academic text, like they will talk about theories, they will talk about research, uh, which is like, a little bit more, I would say more difficult than, than the previous two reading, as I mentioned that it's like more academic now. Okay, so before we finish, so I would say that like when we do IELTS reading, so you should do it in order from question 1 to question 40, because it's like, they already graded from, the easy one to the difficult one. If you start off with the difficult one, so it will be harder for you to like tackle it. So if you start off by like, the easy one, so it's kind of like it's just like, gradual process again when you complete the task, and it would be better. So basically that's all for like reading, and then I think we cover all tasks that is in IELTS reading test already, but be aware that sometimes it's kind of like switch the order around a little bit. So but if you practice a lot, so I'm pretty sure that you will find, different task types that we cover in class, even if it's in different section. Okay, so if you're gonna take the test, my suggestion is that you should, do the exercise a lot. Okay, so complete the task a lot so that you get used to the test. Okay, so that's it for the class. And if you have any questions, so you can leave question with the admin, and then they will get to me. Okay, so thank you very much for watching.